Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about another controversial topic, which is what we like to do here. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. You can see all of my latest articles, all of our latest interviews, content, documentaries, and whatever, just everything's there, right? You can also subscribe to our email newsletter right there, and of course join us on minds.com. And if you want to sign up for our text list, which I highly recommend you do because it's much easier, you don't rely on YouTube or Facebook or any of these platforms, I'm not even using them, to notify you when I put out new content. I send out a text message every time I put out a new article and a new video right to your phone. So sign up for that in the link below the video. Now let's get into drag queen story time. This is a topic that I did a video on back at the end of January. Some of you guys may have seen this, titled "Should Drag Queen Storytime Be Allowed at Libraries?" where I actually went to a library here in Houston that was hosting drag queen storytime, and there were both protesters and supporters in attendance at this event. And I just got some B-roll from outside, and I showed you guys this, and we did a little rundown of drag queen storytime, that it's taken place all over the United States, but it's been really popular in Houston and other places. And I actually interviewed the I don't know if you would say counter protesters, but the people who were there protesting because they didn't like what they were seeing and what they felt the agenda was. And then I also interviewed one of the women on the other side who was there to, quote, protect drag queen storytime. There's a group of people in Houston, I can't remember what they call themselves, but I think it's something along those lines, just protect drag queen storytime. And so I interviewed both sides, talked with both sides, got to see their perspectives, and asked them if maybe they understood the perspectives of the other people. And I was able to say, hey, look, I just talked to the opposition over there, and this is what they believe, and tell that to the other side. And yeah, and I shared that with you guys. Now, I know many of the people in my audience, I've come to realize, are conservative in some regards, and some of you out there consider yourself Christian, or again, maybe just traditional. I don't know if you give yourself a label, but I noticed that particularly in the comments of this video right here, "Should drag queen storytime be allowed at the libraries?" where there are a number of people who have opinions that I definitely don't agree with, like people who just think being gay is wrong, or people dressing up in the opposite sex clothes, which, I mean, I think kind of is a silly concept. Like, hey, dress however the heck you want, it doesn't matter to me, as long as you're not forcing me to call you a certain label or things like that, right? I don't have to agree with what you do to allow you the freedom to do it, that whole thing. But I realize if you look at the comments in this particular video, definitely a lot of people who feel strongly just think that this is a part of the pedophile agenda. Now, if you know my work, you know that I've reported on pedophiles in Hollywood and politics and academia and Jeffrey Epstein and the Finders and things like this. So obviously I'm very aware of those kinds of things. However, I find it difficult to kind of link something like drag, which has been around for a long time, like just the same as pedophilia has existed in humanity's history all the way back to the Romans. Drag, men dressing as women, or costume play and different things like that have existed. Now, the thing is, a lot of these other people say this is part of the transgender issue, but that's also a misunderstanding, where not everybody who dresses in drag is necessarily a trans person who's trying to, become a woman, or, vice versa. So there's just a lot of misunderstandings, I feel like, and I just want to get that out of the way before we go deeper into this next part of the story, because I think it might actually confirm some of your fears, even if I disagree with them. And this is a letter posted here on Houstonia Mag, which is a local newspaper, a local magazine. It says, "We are the organizers of Drag Queen Storytime. This is why we're stepping aside. Quote, we believe in what we're doing, but we don't believe in putting our friends, our families, and our children in danger." What happened here is that a member of Drag Queen Storytime, who had previously read books to kids at the Montrose Library, which is the one that I attended, was apparently a registered sex offender. And this is kind of an apology letter that Drag Queen Storytime is putting out here. It says, until now, we've only spoken in interviews about our experiences, but it's time to speak to Houstonians directly. When we launched Houston's Drag Queen Storytime in September 2017, it wasn't to much acclaim. Most people didn't know we existed. On average, there was only about 5 children. Our story time around Christmas brought in a larger crowd, but on the whole, we weren't particularly popular, and we didn't care because the families that did attend loved it. 6 months passed, and we touched base with Freed Montrose, youth specialist. She liked what we were doing and was excited for us to continue, so we did another 4 months. Then came a TV news story in July. Blackberry, one of the drag queen readers at our very first event, had read to children at an unrelated story time at the Heights Library here in Houston, and Channel 11 did a segment on that. We didn't know the event had occurred until we saw the video being shared, but we certainly don't own the idea of drag queens and kings reading to children. Cities across the United States host similar events. It was a pleasant surprise to see our friend getting recognition for her work. However, this segment coincided with the city council meeting with Michael Kubosh. We got our first protesters that same month, July 2018, Texans Against Transgender Tyranny, they were called. They were peaceful and civil. No one inside the Montrose Library knew there were protesters outside until a patron came in and told us. It continued like this from August through September. It disturbed us, but what could we say? If they're standing outside and politely informing the public that there were drag queens in there reading to the children, it was their right. It was not a threat. And then it says, when Tex Christopher, Tracy Shannon, Chris Sevier, and others filed a lawsuit against the mayor and the Houston Library in October, the protest intensified. At that time, we gave the Houston Police Department, Legal Department, a comprehensive list of every Houston Public Library, Legal Department, a comprehensive list of every guest performer, every book read, and every song sung. From that point forward, if you had any performers, if any performers wanted to be involved in our story time, or if previous performers wanted to read in the future, they needed to apply as volunteers and undergo back checks. An existing library policy until then had not been enforced in this case, an oversight for which the library has apologized. Yes, the Houston Public Library apologized about this. So they go on, but basically the point they're getting at here is that now more recently people have realized that one of the people involved was a sex offender. Last Friday the ball dropped. News broke that one of our former readers was a sex offender. She was part of Storytime before Houston Public Library started enforcing background checks for every performer. And when I think they say she, I think they're speaking of a man who maybe is trans and turned into a woman, or just identifies as that way, and hasn't been since they started. When Trent spoke to the Queen in question this weekend, she confirmed that she had been convicted in 2009. It was devastating. We had insisted that we were doing what was safe for children, yet here was a performer who had been charged with sexual assault of a minor. We didn't know about the conviction prior to last week, but if it would come up in a background check, it would have come up if a background check had been conducted. So the rest of this is this, them kind of expressing their sadness. It says the most upsetting outcome of this is the hate that Blackberry has faced because of the controversy. She has become the canvas onto which right-wing pundits project their hatred and fear. An African-American with a beard and a full face of makeup. Breitbart.com has misidentified her as the sex offender in question. It isn't her fault. She has a clean record and is one of the most prolific drag performers in the city. She's done nothing wrong. How could she have known when we invited her to read a storybook to a handful of children that it would evolve into death threats and national scorn? So you can read the rest of this if you want to. It says, this isn't what we wanted. We have loved seeing the smiling faces on children's faces, their laughter, their dances. We have so loved connecting with parents and connecting with our community. We appreciate the support and experience we gained working with the team at the Houston Public Library. And of course, we have so loved our drag queens and kings. This is why we are choosing to step away to protect the lives and livelihoods of the people we love. We want to serve the LGBT plus community, and we will. We will just have to do it another way. We hope you enjoyed your stay. Outside the sun is shining. It seems like heaven ain't far away. It's good to have you with us, even if it's just for today. So yeah, I guess that's the way they end their story time. And yeah, I mean, again, I want to hear your thoughts. This is a local story right here. Sex offender volunteered at library 3 times. This is a registered sex offender. We were just talking about this. And the library apologizes for not doing the background check properly. And yeah, so I mean, again, it's easy, I think, for some of you guys out there to hear this and be like, yep, this is an example. See, the drag queens are trying to normalize pedophilia. They're trying to normalize transgender with kids. They're trying to normalize these kinds of things. And I think that there is an argument for the normalization of pedophilia and the normalization of, well, diversity. And part of that is accepting people who want to be trans, or what, some of the Native community have called Two-Spirit for generations. It's not a new thing, again. But I don't know. I mean, it's easy, again, to paint a broad brush and say, well, because they found one unregistered pedophile amongst the group, then they're all supportive of that or about that, and this is an attempt to normalize that. But if they're doing background checks, and this is the only one they found, you might want to make sure if this is happening near you that there's other background checks. I mean, background checks should probably be taking place at any time that somebody is going to be involved with your kids because of, I mean, I've found examples of pedophilia in the Catholic Church, in the Baptist Church, in the, what are they called? Jehovah's Witnesses, and in Hollywood, and politics, and sports, and I mean, it's in everywhere, right? This is a culture, so it's wise to take care of your kids and watch who they're around, I think, no matter what you're dealing with. But I don't think you can just say, since there was one person, that means that the whole thing was about normalizing it. I could be wrong, but again, I think in other areas, I definitely see an attempt to normalize sex with the youth. But at the same time, and I'm not saying this is good, but at the same time, go back to pretty much any movie over the, like, let's say past the 50s, right? Toward beginning of the 60s, like the sexual revolution, the hippies, and whatever else. Seems like a lot of movies have always glorified young girls and young boys in this really kind of creepy way, and it's normal, it's accepted. Even you see it in pop music, that when people graduate from being Disney, the next thing they go to like Hannah Montana or whatever, and it's like, okay, perhaps this is just a youthful person with all this attention on them, and they're just being a little crazy, like some of us might with all that attention, especially with in the age of social media. Or are there other people and other influences who are kind of like, let's get you to wear this, so let's do this dance move, let's put you in this scene, let's do this theme for the music video, whatever, right? I don't know. I think it's a combination of things, but I do see a sort of imbalance, right? Where you have the hypersexualization either showing that's the sex conversation, just like hypersexualized, like people grinding on each other and all this kind of crazy stuff, or just hide it away and don't talk about it. So there's a lot of imbalance taking place all over, and kids are getting a mixed message. Now, I don't necessarily know that, like, I guess if your parents want to take you to drag queen story time, hopefully they've already had that conversation and say, hey, we're going to go to a story time where I'm going to show you people who look and act differently. And that's okay. So I'm not telling you need to dress up this way, but be aware that there are all kinds of people in the world. Because there are a lot of kind of different people, whether we're talking about sexual orientation, people who just like to dress in black, people who like to dress in pink, people who like to wear crazy hair or piercings or tattoos, or people who are straight-laced, people just, there's all kinds of people in this world, and teaching kids diversity is a good thing. So yeah, those are just my thoughts on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I do want to remind you guys, since this is coming out on a Friday, happy Friday to you, that in case I haven't said this really loudly enough or publicly enough yet, the videos come out Monday through Friday. My articles come out Monday through Friday, so check the website every day, Monday through Friday. The live show airs Friday night, so that'll be tonight, this Friday. And also my radio program, Freethinker Radio, airs every Friday as well. So if you want to get plugged into all those things, again, the best place to do that is to sign up for our text list. Look in the description below the video. If you want to support us on Patreon, that goes a long way. We've got new documentary projects coming up, lots of new exciting things. So thank you guys for being plugged in. Let me know what you think about this whole drag queen story time, sex offender story, if it matters to you, if it was on your radar. And I got a lot more important stories coming your way very soon, including looking into this fire that's been burning in Houston. So please stay plugged in. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.